Welcome to another deep dive. Today, we're journeying into the spooky depths of Duskwood in World of Warcraft to uncover the lore behind Mor'Ladim now. On the surface, he might seem like just another enemy you encounter in this zone. You get a quest to take him down. Simple, right? But trust me, there's a whole lot more to this encounter than meets the eye. We'll be diving into the quest text and descriptions from the game itself, exploring how a seemingly straightforward monster hunt transforms into a powerful story of tragedy, despair, and what happens when even a hero breaks.
What's really intriguing about Mor'Ladim is that he's not just some random creature thrown in for players to defeat. His story is woven into the very fabric of Duskwood, adding a layer of depth and emotional resonance to the zone itself. You're likely to encounter him fairly early on, too, maybe around level 10 to 30, which makes this experience all the more impactful.
Exactly. The quest you pick up is called Mor'Ladim, and it tasks you with, well, dealing with Mor'Ladim and bringing his skull back to Commander Althea Ebbenlock in Darkshire. The quest description paints a chilling picture, describing Mor'Ladim as a restless spirit who wanders the Duskwood Cemetery. You can almost picture him right, haunting the graveyard, forever tormented. And the detail about his burial being past the house on the hill adds to that eerie atmosphere. It's not just a generic location, it's a specific place, adding a layer of realism to the encounter.
Remember, Duskwood is already known for its creepy vibe, and these little details about Mor'Ladim just amplify that. It's like the game designers are subtly preparing you for something more than a standard monster fight. You're not just hunting an enemy, you're confronting something born out of darkness and despair.
And when you talk to Commander Ebbenlock to get the quest, she's not exactly reassuring, is she? She even mentions that some of our strongest watchers have been lost to Mor'Ladim. These are seasoned warriors who have fallen to this foe.
It immediately establishes the stakes, doesn't it? Here you are, a relatively new adventurer, and you're being warned that even experienced fighters have struggled against Mor'Ladim. The game even suggests bringing a group of 3 players to take him on. It sets the stage for a challenging encounter, one that might make you question if you're truly ready to face what lies ahead.
So you head out, prepared for a tough fight. And the notes section of the quest gives you more insight into what you're up against. Mor'Ladim is described as a level 25 elite skeletal warrior with over 4,000 health points. That's a considerable amount for players at that level. He also has these 2 interesting abilities. Holy Shock, which deals a burst of damage. And then there's Enraging Memories.
Now, Enraging Memories is particularly interesting, wouldn't you say? It boosts his attack speed, making him more aggressive, but it also slows his movements. It's like he's consumed by a berserker rage. But that rage also makes him more predictable, maybe even vulnerable, strategically. This creates a fascinating dilemma for players. Do you exploit his slower movement speed? Or do you brace yourself for a flurry of attacks?
It's like the game mechanics themselves are hinting at a deeper internal struggle, right?
Okay.
But here's the thing. All of this becomes even more significant when you learn who Mor'Ladim actually was before he became this vengeful spirit. The source material reveals that he was once Morgan Ladimore, a noble knight dedicated to protecting the innocent.
It's a stark contrast, isn't it? A hero turned into something we perceive as monstrous. It makes you wonder, what could possibly drive a champion of good to become the very thing he swore to fight against?
Well, Morgan's story is one of profound tragedy and loss, and it's woven into the quest line called The Story of Morgan Ladimore. It starts with a picture of a seemingly perfect life. Morgan had a loving wife named Lyse, 3 children, and a strong sense of duty. When war came to Lordaeron, he answered the call, leaving his family behind to fight alongside Uther Lightbringer himself.
Imagine the weight of that decision, to leave everything you hold dear to fight for a greater cause, knowing the risks, the uncertainties, yet still pushing forward out of a sense of responsibility, of loyalty to your people. It speaks to the kind of person Morgan was, a true hero willing to sacrifice his own happiness for the greater good. And the war he faced. It wasn't just any conflict. We're talking about the fall of the Silver Hand, the death of Uther Lightbringer, events that shook the very foundations of Lordaeron. The source material mentions Morgan witnessing these horrors firsthand, seeing the plague ravage the land, and the heroes he fought alongside fall one by one.
It's hard to imagine the despair he must have felt, seeing everything crumble around him, yet, through it all, the thought of returning to his family, to his Liz and their children, kept him going. There's that glimmer of hope that sustained him amidst the darkness.
It's a testament to the power of love, isn't it? Even in the face of such overwhelming loss and destruction, the hope of reunion kept him fighting, kept him clinging to his humanity.
But what Morgan finds upon returning home is beyond devastating. His homeland is in ruins, his home destroyed. And then, the final blow. He comes across the gravestones of his wife and children. Everything he fought for, everything that kept him going, is gone.
It's a gut-wrenching moment. To survive such horrors, to hold on to hope for so long, only to have it ripped away so brutally. The source text describes him collapsing at their graves, consumed by grief and denial. It's important to remember, this isn't just a story. This is a person, a hero who has lost everything.
And in that moment of absolute despair, he lashes out,
Yeah.
attacking those nearby, cemetery attendants who had nothing to do with his tragedy. It's a tragic illustration of how grief can twist even the purest of hearts, leading to actions completely out of character.
This act of violence against innocence
Mhm.
is a turning point in the story. It highlights the depths of his despair, the shattering of his moral compass, Morgan. The noble knight, the protector, violates the very principles he once held dear.
And ultimately, unable to cope with the immensity of his loss, he takes his own life.
But even in death, there is no peace for Morgan Ladimore. Because of his grief, because of the violation of his own moral code, he returns as Mor'Ladim, a vengeful spirit forever bound to the place of his sorrow.
And that brings us back to the quest, to the player's encounter with Mor'Ladim. Suddenly, this isn't just a monster to be slain, it's a tragic figure, a fallen hero twisted by grief and rage.
Remember that ability we discussed earlier, enraging memories. It takes on a whole new meaning now, doesn't it? It's not just a gameplay mechanic. It's a reflection of Morgan's internal struggle, the pain and fury that consume him, the memories that haunt him.
It's also interesting that even as Mor'Ladim, this vengeful spirit, he retains some of his past. He still uses holy magic, which feels almost ironic considering his current state.
That irony adds another layer to this tragedy. It speaks to the lingering remnants of the hero he once was, the conflict between his past and his present. It raises questions about the nature of grief and whether it can truly corrupt even the purest forms of power.
It also makes you think about how the game designers use these subtle details to enhance the storytelling, to make this encounter so much more than just a fight. They could have easily made Mor'Ladim another generic undead enemy, but by giving him this rich backstory, this tragic history, they transformed him into something truly memorable, something that stays with you long after you've completed the quest.
Exactly. It's a testament to the power of lore in video games.
Yeah.
Mor'Ladim's story isn't just an isolated incident. It's part of a larger tapestry woven throughout the world of Warcraft. These stories enrich the game world, adding depth and meaning to even the simplest of encounters.
It's a reminder that even in a fantasy setting, even when battling fantastical creatures, there's room for relatable human experiences: love, loss, grief, hope. These are universal themes that resonate with us all, regardless of whether we're exploring Azeroth or navigating our own lives. And what's so powerful about this story is that it prompts you to consider how you might react in a similar situation. If you were faced with such devastating loss, how would you cope? Would you, like Morgan, succumb to despair and rage? Or would you find a different path?
It's a question that lingers long after you finish the quest, isn't it? It challenges you to examine your own capacity for resilience, your own understanding of grief and its complexities. Mor'Ladim's story reminds us that even the strongest among us can be broken, and that the line between hero and monster can be blurred by trauma and despair.
It also makes you think about the act of killing Mor'Ladim within the game. Knowing his tragic backstory, does it change how you approach that encounter?
It certainly adds a layer of moral complexity, doesn't it? Are you delivering justice, or are you perpetuating the cycle of violence that ultimately destroyed Morgan Ladimore? It's a question the game doesn't answer for you, leaving you to grapple with the implications of your actions.
And I think that's part of what makes World of Warcraft's storytelling so compelling. It doesn't shy away from difficult questions or moral gray areas. It presents you with complex situations and allows you to draw your own conclusions.
Exactly. It respects the player's intelligence and encourages them to think critically about the world they're interacting with. It's not just about mindless grinding or chasing loot. It's about engaging with a rich narrative tapestry that explores universal themes and challenges your perspectives.
So the next time you find yourself wandering through the haunted forests of Duskwood, remember the story of Morgan Ladimore. Remember that the enemies you encounter aren't just pixels on a screen. They're often reflections of deeper narratives, of human struggles and emotions, of the complexities of good and evil.
And maybe, just maybe, these stories will encourage you to look beyond the surface, to seek understanding, and to approach both virtual and real-world challenges with a bit more empathy and compassion.
This has been a fascinating deep dive, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. It's a reminder that even in a game like World of Warcraft, there's always more to discover, Always another layer to uncover.
And we're just scratching the surface. So until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep into the worlds that fascinate you. You never know what hidden treasures you might find.